Why, it almost seems counterintuitive that touching would diminish during pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some physiological explanation for that? Because you have so many biological explanations for so much of what you've said. Is there an explanation for that?
Well, mom's oxytocin level is going to go up by the fact that she's pregnant. Certain things in later stages of pregnancy.
And we should say oxytocin is known as the mothering hormone.
The mothering hormone.
So, and that's why you mention it as it's, that's...
Thank you.
Go ahead.
And it's kind of the bonding hormone. It's what's going to make that real strong attachment with the baby. And so her oxytocin level is going up. She needs a little less of it stimulated from outside. However, he needs it as well. And maybe he doesn't recognize how much he needs increase in his hormone, which is vasopressin, similar, and oxytocin. Okay, so touch tends to drop off. They get very busy. Every pregnant couple becomes real busy, and as the pregnancy progresses, they become even busier. There's more visits, and there's more, I got to build the nursery, I got to work longer hours, so there's less, they take less of the opportunity to touch.
Now, you've talked about 3 T's. Talk about the 5 A's of a good relationship.
Well, the 5 A's, which are listed in the book, principally key off of affection, appreciation for each other. It's truly the expression of the positive things that go into a relationship. It's recognizing that your partner needs affection. They need appreciation. They need approval.
And especially when you're talking about men worrying about how they're going to fit in after this baby's born, that's what they're anticipating, that it's very important that they be reassured.
Right.
Obviously.
Absolutely.
So much of your advice really has to do with how to nurture a relationship anyway, regardless of the status of children, whether or not there are children in the relationship. We're really talking about how to nurture any kind of couple here.
It is, and in fact, when, again, you look at couples that have really been successful, 50 years, 60th anniversary, you look at how much they touch, how often they hold hands, how much they spend time talking, how much time they have together, and they reflect on those times they've had together. That those 3 T's have enabled them to not only endure, but to endear over all of those years. There's a real lesson there for couples that are looking to have the joy of a loving relationship, sustain, last, and support a great family.
Let's talk a little bit about how easy it is for couples to misinterpret each other during a pregnancy. Because generally, if a woman is happy that she's pregnant, and she becomes very almost introspective in terms of what's going on with her body, and as I mentioned, bonding with other women, and she can just assume that her partner is as excited about this pregnancy as she is. And often will just say, oh yeah, he's doing great, he's really excited, and yet he can be thinking quite the opposite. He's very fearful, he's very worried. In some ways he's angry at his wife because she seems less available. That often goes on, doesn't it? We're total misinterpretation of what the other person is feeling.
Frequently goes on. And that is one of those factors that can derail the couple. They need to be checking in pretty often. I've talked to a number of moms that say, oh, he's the Rock of Gibraltar, he is great. I talked to him and he said, I'm falling apart, I'm going crazy, I'm worried all the time, she doesn't seem the same person to me, this relationship seems to be changing, and am I right for the relationship? And they're starting to throw all these questions up. They need to be talking about, on a regular basis, their feelings, the experiences that they're going through, and so forth, so that that type of situation doesn't happen.
What kind of risk factors do people bring into relationships that can cause problems?
Go through some of them here quickly, and that is one of the big risk factors is having a baby when you're too young. Having a baby before you've established the relationship, before you've really had a chance to get to know each other and experience each other. Couples that come from divorced parents, are at higher risk. Couples that have any history of domestic violence are more at risk. And on that note, it isn't just does he have a history of domestic violence, does she have a history of having been in relationships of domestic violence? Often is a risk factor. So those are some of the major risk factors involved. Age obviously plays a role in this because it takes a certain level of maturity, a certain outlook, a certain means. Those that are financially in trouble stand a high risk of perhaps not doing as well through pregnancy and as a relationship.
And I would think just awareness of these factors would also be a huge help. How do you make relationships last? And in a very general sense, because children certainly add an ingredient to a relationship that can be very good and, as you've mentioned, can cause problems too. But in general, in talking about how relationships last, it applies, I would think, to all kinds of marriages, whether there are children there or not. How do you do that? What are the ingredients that go into a really good, solid, long-lasting relationship?
You know, I remember, and maybe some of the viewers do too, some of the basic lessons in kindergarten, which was don't bite, don't spit, don't push, don't hit, you know, and so forth. In a sense, those are the foundation blocks.
No name calling.
No name calling of relationships. A fellow named John Gottman, who has written extensively and probably is the consummate expert on relationship success. He cites what he calls the 4 horsemen of communication that can tear communication down. One of which is devastating. He says defensiveness, criticism, stonewalling, and contempt. Relationships you can deal with defensiveness because you can recognize it, confront it, and work with it. You can deal with criticism, and sometimes relationships have a certain criticism flies back and forth, and it's almost a form of communication, but relationships last. Stonewalling is where one simply says, well, yeah, I'll do that, yeah, and it really just now changed channels and so forth. You can deal with those communication issues. The one that's devastating is contempt. When one part of a couple sees themselves as fundamentally better than the other partner, that they actually are the expert, the more valued party of the relationship. So if you can recognize those things and you can kind of confront those and work those out and discuss those and find ways to work with them, the relationship is going to last a lot longer.
Absolutely. If you can avoid those red flags, you end up with a really solid relationship.
You do, Jackie.
I want to thank Dr. Rodriguez for joining us today. For upcoming episodes, viewer feedback, and important links to information about health and medicine, log on to our website at the address that appears on your screen. Thanks for joining us on Health Vision, a production of WOUB Public Television.